To Professor Saeed Marandi from the University of Tehran. Professor, thank you so much for being here on BBC News. Your reaction, first of all, to the Israeli attack?
Iranians were surprised that the Israeli response was so lame. And I think it reflects the fact that the Iranian strike on Israel, contrary to the Israeli propaganda that was basically repeated by most of Western media, it was an effective attack. The Israelis tried to claim that they downed 300 missiles and drones, but the reality was quite different. What the Iranians did was they sent roughly 200 very old drones that costed almost nothing for them, maybe a couple of $1 million altogether. And when they reached near Israel, they also fired 2 sets of missiles, older missiles and a handful of newer missiles.
Yeah.
The older missiles and the drones were decoys, and they were out there to force the Israelis and the Americans to fire off all of their top-notch weapons and to get intelligence. And then a handful of missiles struck 2 targets there based in the south, and the intelligence gathering center.
Sure, which is all that happened over the weekend. In terms of what happened overnight, this attack, I know you described it as lame, but will there be a response from Tehran?
Well, since nothing happened, I don't know. We'll have to see what decision is made by the government, because it is a bit, I would imagine it's problematic, because the Iranians said they will respond to any attack on Iranian citizens and Iranian assets, wherever they may be, and we don't really seem to see anything that really has happened. So I don't know what the decision of the government will be, but whatever it is, it's clear that the Israelis recognize that Iran has changed the equation, and from now on, if they strike you, Iran will hit back very hard.
US officials are clear that missiles landed that the Israelis had fired, they weren't intercepted. Does that trouble you at all, that the message that Israel perhaps wanted to send out is that we can hit you wherever and whenever and actually get through all of your air defenses, and that is exactly what we saw? Does that trouble you? Does that worry you?
No, there are no missiles, and I think probably the Americans are saying this to play up some sort of Israeli response to make it look like it wasn't as lame as it really is. The real reason why the Americans don't want escalation is because they know that in an exchange between Iran and Israel, Iran will definitely have the upper hand. Iran has a very powerful drone and missile capability, very high tech. What the Iranians used a few days ago, as I said, they were basically for gathering intelligence and for attracting, they were decoys to force the Israelis and the Americans.
Sure, I mean, the Israelis, the Americans would argue exactly the opposite, that Tehran doesn't want to go toe-to-toe with Israel because of their firepower, their air defenses. Let me ask you a question.
Well, the Israelis backed down, not the Iranians.
Okay, let me ask you a question, because after the attack last weekend, I asked Israel's former ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, was it reckless that Israel had actually launched that attack in Damascus 2 weeks ago? Let me ask you the same question. Was it extremely reckless of Iran to launch that attack with 300 drones and missiles on Israel last weekend?
No, I think it was a very smart move. I think the West should be very grateful to Iran for showing so much patience over the years when the Israelis constantly killed Iranians who were fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, because the Israelis were working with these extremist groups. Only when the Israelis bombed the Iranian embassy and Western countries prevented the UN Security Council from condemning it. This is unprecedented, I think, in...
Sure, and the attack launched last weekend was unprecedented in scale. Let me ask you a final question, because we don't know if that strike last night was the start of something further from Israel or the end of it. We wait to see. But if it is the start and there are further attacks, your reflections at that stage, would you anticipate that Iran would respond?
Well, first, I should say that the Iranian attack wasn't unprecedented. It was a response to a bombing of an embassy. If it was the British...
I'm talking about the scale of it was unprecedented.
Well, as I said, those drones were there to distract and to make the surface-to-air missiles move in their direction so that the missiles targeting the two bases could get through. But in any case, if the Israelis strike Iran, the Iranians have said very clearly that they have changed the equation. From now on, it's not going to be like before, where the Iranians show strategic patience. From now on, if the Israelis strike, the Iranians will strike much harder. And I think that's exactly why the Americans don't want for this to continue, because it will be the Israelis that are on the losing end. And the Israelis are already failing in Gaza, and they're failing in the north, in Lebanon, and in the eyes of global public opinion, they have been completely demolished.
Professor, we have to leave it there, but thanks for joining us live here on BBC News. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.